Hello and welcome to ChooseFI. Today on the show, we have our good friend Bradley Rice back on the show. It's been quite a while since we last had him on to talk about Salesforce, transitioning to new careers, how to use LinkedIn to find the hidden job market, which we talked about on episode 379, which was incredibly interesting. And this is really the latest, ultimately the second installment of our update series. So I actually had a bunch of people email me. I think it was three in like a 6-day span where they basically paraphrased said, "Hey, Brad, you haven't updated us in years on those Salesforce jobs or Talent Stacker that you talked about a lot a couple years back. Is it still relevant in 2024?" So I reached out to Bradley, who's a longtime ChooseFI community member, and I said, "Hey, you want to come back on? Let's talk about this. Is it relevant in 2024? Is Talent Stacker still working for people to get jobs?" And I think this is, of course, but one way that people can transition from a current career into another career, potentially making more money. But what's cool is I think it seeds that mindset of, okay, how can I think about transitioning? Maybe I'm not happy where I am now. How can I think about moving? What are the steps that I could take? And I think that's what Bradley has done really, really well over his prior appearances. So I think this is going to be a fun update. And with that, welcome to ChooseFI. Bradley, welcome back to ChooseFI. It's good to see you, my friend.
Man, it is great to be here. It's been a minute, so I am excited to be back and get to hang out with you for a little bit. So thank you for having me on.
Yeah, you bet, my friend. It has been a minute. And yeah, it's wild to think back to when we first met, which was at, I guess, Camp Phi Southeast so many years ago, at least 6 years. Was it January 2018, possibly?
I think you're right. It's right in there somewhere, 2017, 2018, Camp Fi down in Gainesville, Hawthorne area. And
Yeah.
that was pretty incredible. You couldn't talk at all.
Yeah, that was. Do you know I still have the after effects of losing my voice at that Camp Phi? Like whenever I go to an event now and talk a lot, my voice is just on the cusp. I call it my voice being brittle. I don't know. So anyway, not all that interesting to the audience, but it's wild how that has really stuck with me all these years. But yeah, those live events, those in real life meetups, they just matter so much to our community. And I think that's just what's so cool is, yeah, we met you there. And then we had you on the podcast in episode 117 at basically the beginning of 2019. And you were at that point just, and I don't mean just, but you were just a regular Phi community member, right? And then you were pursuing Phi. I think you were on the path to, at that point, you were upskilling and you were, I think if memory serves, because it was so long ago, you were essentially transitioning into a career where you could use your Salesforce skills on the side and make a significant income without working 40 hours a week. Is my memory hold at all?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think the goal of the episode overall was that we were talking about more like a lifestyle design conversation. And it was about how you can use the skills you have today to work part time and how you transition into, having more of your time back. And the funny thing is, I was working part time, still making, 6-figure income as a Salesforce professional. So no one really latched onto at least not that I'm aware of, latched onto the lifestyle design element. They were all like, "What the heck is Salesforce, and how do I do that thing?"
Kind of buried the lead on, hey guys, this is more of a Tim Ferriss 4-Hour Workweek kind of story, right?
Yeah, it wasn't so much about getting into Salesforce. It was more about, taking your life and thinking more, critically about how you intertwine your career into your life. And then it very, very quickly shifted to become, how does a Salesforce thing go? And then I think one of the listeners created what is now the Salesforce for Everyone Facebook group. And it went wild from there once we all got together.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So it's funny how you never know where your life is going to take you, right? You essentially were designing a 4-hour work week life where you could make a significant income. Again, I think the title of that episode was Making a Case for Part-Time Work. So it's so interesting that, yeah, that got put to the side because, oh, wow, this career that I'm interested in, and that's why you're back on the show today, is we talked about Salesforce so many times here on the show. And we've talked about what I guess ultimately evolved from that episode, from maybe those early Facebook groups, which is this Talent Stacker career development program that you put together. And I mean, that turned into something really massive that has helped thousands of people transition into a new career. And I mean, you could have never envisioned that. I mean, literally the day we met you at that Camp FI, right?
Yeah, no, not even close. It was actually another Camp FI a couple of years later. I was there. I did what do you know, another little talk about a case for part time and thinking critically about your work. And what do you know, another ChooseFI listener comes along and they're like, man, this is really great information. You should somehow package this and educate the world on the Salesforce thing and how to use it to design a more intentional life. And I went home and I didn't really know what to do, and I hired an intern with my part-time income. I hired an intern and I was like, how do you create a course? Like, what are these platforms you create courses on? Because I wasn't really a big course taker. And yeah, long story short, got going on that, reconnected with you guys. Talent Stacker was born. And, to your point, I knew I could help people get jobs because we'd been doing that inside of that Facebook group that had occurred from the first episode, and people were getting jobs. And I think it got up to about 60 individuals in that group, and there were only about 200 people. So about 60 of those individuals landed jobs. It was a huge percentage of the overall group. And we realized there's something here. And I was getting a lot of DMs and emails about, hey, how do I break into my first job? I'm struggling, I'm hitting these barriers and these kind of things. And I realized, I was like, man, there's definitely something we can do here. I'm not necessarily an expert on how to structure a scalable approach to educating individuals and training individuals. But what do you know? When you put time and energy towards something, you figure out how to do it and you talk to the right people. And yeah, it became something really, really meaningful. And, back then, I think that was late 2020 when we first launched the Talent Stacker program. And at the time, I was really, really proud of it. I thought it was incredible. And our first member who ever joined the program landed a job just 42 days later. So it was all going great. But now I look back, it's been 3 years now. And I look back and I go, man, that initial program was so embarrassing. Like, yeah, it worked, but it's so embarrassing compared to what we're looking at today. And again, to your point, never could have dreamed it up. Never thought it would be what it is today. I thought it'd be sort of a side project that we worked on, but it became a really meaningful thing in my life and a lot of people's lives. So very, very thankful for that.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. Congratulations. Just huge congrats. It's wild when you think about how a passion for something and just this alchemy of knowledge and passion and genuinely believing you can help somebody can lead you to something remarkable that you just never could have envisioned in your life. And it's really a testament to the hard work and dedication that you and the whole team has put in there. It's wild. And I mean, I've had kind of a first row seat, I guess, of watching this because as a lot of people from following ChooseFI have known, we have really truly partnered with you guys. And I know Jonathan, when he found out about Talent Stacker, I mean, he went all in. I think it's long catalog that Jonathan is very dubious at best of the the value of a college degree. And I think it was not just that, not like a railing against the system for the sake of it, but this seems so needless. And I think for him, it was born from his own story, right? Of going to undergrad, of coming out of pharmacy school with $168,000 in student loan debt, taking years to pay it off. I mean, he was probably 12 years in at that point from the start of undergrad to paying off those loans. And I mean, that's a really long time. And what if you can shortcut it for people? And I think that was always our goal at ChooseFI, was to find a number of these programs that could really help people transition. And honestly, Bradley, I'm still on the lookout for them. Especially how dubious I am of online programs, of any type of program. And I was skeptical of Talent Stacker at the beginning. I mean, truly skeptical. I think that, again, is something well cataloged. Like, I find in my own experience that most online courses are complete junk. They're a total waste of time. And it's a lot of money. It's a lot of time. And at the end, you're like, well, damn, I could have figured that out, or that didn't even help me at all. But, like, I have gotten so many emails from ChooseFI listeners over the years, basically saying like, hey, I took a leap and I joined Talent Stack. I joined that free 5-day challenge that you talked about. And one thing led to another. I joined the program. I paid for it. I took the leap. And now I got this job making $75,000. And like, I transitioned from a job I didn't like, or I loved this job, but it didn't pay enough and I needed to transition. And it's just remarkable. So, I mean, I have come literally 180 degrees on this. Not that I was skeptical of you, obviously, but just in general. And so that is a very long way of saying, like, man, it's just been cool to watch. It's just been really, really cool to see how many ChooseFI community members have benefited. So bravo to you and the team.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think too, your skepticism is not the wrong way to be. I mean, I'm still very skeptical of online programs, courses. Going back to what you mentioned, college. I'm very skeptical about college programs, college courses, online programs, online courses. You have to be careful because they're a dime a dozen. And I think it's the most interesting thing is that if you don't know, you don't know, but there are ways to evaluate the quality of any online course. I don't care if you're interested in tech and Salesforce or Talent Stacker or some totally different skill set that you're trying to grow. You can vet and validate these online programs. And I always tell people you should absolutely look for testimonials. Those testimonials should absolutely reference that person's full name. If they're not willing to give a testimonial under their full name, then how much of a testimonial are they really willing to give? It's basically saying, like, I'll give you a testimony, but I don't want anyone to know who I really am. So the thing
Right.
about us and other great programs that I've seen, not in our space, but in other spaces, is that when they have testimonies, a lot of times they'll have videos, sometimes they'll have blurbs, but it's always full name. And then you can go look those people up on LinkedIn, which is where a lot of professionals live in our space. You can go look them up by name, validate that A, they were in the Talent Stacker program, B, their current job title is as a Salesforce professional. And then if you really want to go for it, you can send them a DM. Are they always going to respond? I don't know. It's up to that person, but it's verifiable, right? You can go talk to the people who have done the thing, and they're not going to give you a referral link and they're not going to give you an affiliate code. They're just going to tell you what it's like being inside of this thing so you can do your homework. Now, if you're one of those people who gets an email and somebody tries to sell you something for 2 grand and you just go, boy, I hope this is it, and you swipe your credit card, that's one way to go about it. Or you could do a little research, you could do a little homework, and you can go talk to the people because they're real, right? Like people who do these testimonials, they better be real people. And you can actually go talk to them because they're real people. So I think being skeptical is core to being smart, being safe, being savvy with our finances and our time and energy. But I've heard a lot of times, especially early on when we didn't have receipts, when we didn't have that credibility to say, look at all these people we've helped. Now it's like if you go to talentstacker.com/wins, all you're going to see is a wall of stories. I think it's like 70 stories of different individuals from different backgrounds and different walks of life that have had success with this transition, whether it be education or healthcare, blue collar, stay at home parents, high school kids, college kids, anything and everything in between. And you can find yourself in those stories and then decide, is this something I want to do? Or is this maybe not interesting to me? But all that to say, be skeptical. But I've heard so many times, if it sounds too good to be true, it is too good to be true. And I think to put that is on the end of it is too good to be true is so limiting in life. It basically means when there is something exceptionally good in this world, we should immediately believe it is a lie and run from it, which effectively means you're going to live your entire life running from all of the exceptionally good things in the world because they're too good to be true. And every now and then, something is simply true. And you should do your research and you should make sure it's credible and you should make sure it's not one of the things that's too good. But not
Yeah.
everything in life is too good to be true. There are great things in life.
Well, I have a very personal story for that, right? Is travel rewards. I think that is the perfect case in point of, man, this sounds incredible. This sounds way too good to be true. And I'm coming off as like some horribly skeptical person. I think most people who listen to the show know that I'm pretty open minded, positive outlook kind of guy. But I mean, I was as skeptical as any human on earth when I heard about travel rewards because it sounded crazy. Like, how is this even possible? And I did my research. I did literally thousands of hours of research and I realized, okay, this is for real. And what I essentially did, which was basically what you're doing, is I helped teach people how to do something. I cut through the noise. I figured out kind of the 80/20 analysis of travel rewards. I was never the world class expert on it, but I was able to teach people to get started and realize, like, okay, here were my objections. And here's what I came up with. And I'm a reasonably reputable guy, a CPA, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Like, I'm not just like doing some crazy stuff here. And I think that that kind of example really does help. So I also love how you immediately went to like, hey, you should go and DM people on LinkedIn. So that reminds me of your other episode, which was 379, which was the hidden job market. And you gave just a ton of really actionable pieces of advice for how to find those jobs, how to find things that aren't just obviously apparent, how to network, how to make real connections. And that was one of those episodes that, in fairness, I don't reference it as often as I should because it was phenomenal. So I'm glad this is like the perfect reminder in my own brain. Like that's something that needs to go to the very top of the list. Because I mean, honestly, what we're doing here, why we're doing this update episode is there are a lot of people looking to transition into a career, into some new career. It may or may not be Salesforce, it may not be tech, whatever. It's irrelevant. The skills you gave on that episode 379, that was just uniformly and universally helpful. So I definitely want to reference that. Everybody should check that out. And you'll get a sense of what Bradley brings to the table. And I think that's the important thing, right? Because what you're doing, as I understand with Talent Stacker, is you can get Salesforce certified just like anything on your own. You can learn, you can figure it out. It doesn't cost very much, or if anything, honestly. And obviously you can specify. But what you've built is a career development program. And I think that's why it obviously has a significant price tag to it, but it's not just, hey, this is an online course. Sign up for my videos for $100, $200, whatever it is, right? Like it's a completely different animal.
Yeah, I think we differentiated it early on as, there are courses, and what I would expect from a course would be, like you said, 100, $200 or less. And I'm going to learn a very specific thing, probably DIY videos and text. And I'll come out on the other side and maybe I'll have a certification, like a Salesforce certification, right? And those are out there. They're a dime a dozen. You can pick your poison and go with the trainer that you want to go with and pay 20, 30, 40, $50 and get a Salesforce certification. In fact, Trailhead is the free online training platform that Salesforce has, and you can go on there and train for free. And that's one of the biggest things that we see from people who are already in the Salesforce community. And they're like, why would you join Talent Stacker, a program like that? You can just go on Trailhead for free. And it's like, yeah, it's really, really good for getting a certification, but a certification doesn't get you a job. It's not quite that easy. And there's a few different things that go into it. I won't go too deep, but basically it's like, if you want a job, you have to get a Salesforce certification. That's the first thing. I would call that about 10% of the deal. That's your Salesforce administrator certification. After that, you need to have a strong network, because everybody always says like your network is your net worth, but then they don't tell you how to network to build that net worth, right? So we talk a lot about networking, building your brand. Typically it's on LinkedIn because it's a professional social media platform, and how to get in front of those jobs, like you said, the hidden job market. But there's a few different steps, right? We need to get you hands-on experience so that you go into interviews and you actually can talk about things like, hey, what's your biggest strength or weakness? And you actually have real projects to talk about. Or what's the work that you've done that you're most proud of? And you can reference Salesforce work or technical work, not being a father or something like that, which is still great, but it doesn't apply to that individual, right? It's like, okay, yeah, you're a great person, but like I need somebody to do this job. So it's the certification, it's your network, it is your interview readiness and your hands-on experience. Those are really the four core, I'll just say, milestones of what we train you for. And again, that's live instructor-led training. There's some self-led in there. We do meetups in person and all kind of different things. So it's much, much bigger than just swipe a credit card, get access to the online portal to click next, 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 next until you're done. It's an engaged community of individuals. And most people, especially now, are saying the biggest value long-term to being inside a Talent Stacker is the community, because we have people who have been in it for 3 years. And now guess what? They're managers and they're making hiring decisions on who to hire. And guess who they're hiring? Their fellow Talent Stacker members. And if they can't hire them, they're at least getting them interviews and they're getting them a step forward in the process. And that is huge when you can basically purchase into an immediate network where when you stamp the Talent Stacker logo on your resume and your LinkedIn profile, your portfolio, boom, like it's instant awareness that you are part of this network and this group, and everybody tries to help each other. And it's really more than I ever could have imagined. So on top of the actual training, we have this beautiful thing that emerged just as part of facilitating this. So yes, it's been unimaginable.
That's amazing. All right, Bradley, I want to rapid fire some questions on you. So, do you have a rough sense of how many ChooseFI listeners have gotten actual jobs, like have transitioned into a Salesforce career?
Yeah, we do actually. So, in preparation to come hang out with you today, we pulled the numbers and the data is a little fuzzy, but it's somewhere between 400 and 500 individuals have said Choose FI is where I heard about Talent Stacker and now I've landed a job. So, we're talking in the last 3 years, we've had over 100 people a year, close to 200 people a year landing jobs that heard about it from Choose FI. So, thank you to Choose FI for,
That's
helping
crazy.
share this message.
That's amazing. And do you have like even rough salary? I feel like it was somewhere like 60 to 80 starting. Is that a rough estimate?
Yes. I've got these numbers on the back of my hand because
Oh, geez.
we
Okay.
share them every month publicly on
Okay.
LinkedIn and in our newsletter. So average entry level salary for 2023 was just over $72,000. So that's no tech background, no college degree, no experience, first job, just over $72,000. So if you want to say 65 to 75, that's going to be right inside the ballpark of expectations. Time to job landed takes about 5 months. Keep in mind that our typical member has a full time job. They can put in about, I'd say, 10 to 15 hours a week on average of study time. And so that's going to be getting your certification, all the things we talked about, right? The certification, the networking, the interview prep, the hands on experience, all that stuff, plus applying for jobs, going through interview processes. Just applying for a job and going through an interview process can take a month. So to think you could do it, much faster, I think would be naive. But I would say if you say 4 to 6 months to making 65 to $75,000 in a new career path, that's really what I would want you to be expecting.
Yeah, that's pretty remarkable. Do you have a sense? So, okay, when someone signs up for a program, an online course, whatever, any type of program, there's obviously a whole range of the amount of work they put in, right? So, I'm sure you've had thousands of people sign up for Talent Stacker, and some percentage of them drop off, don't finish. That's their own issue, right? Like,
Yeah.
let's just put those people to the side. But of the people that have literally done everything you've asked, right? Like they have done all the projects, they've done all the networking, they whatever showed up. I'm making stuff up. They showed up for Facebook Lives that you have, whatever it is. They did everything. Do you have a sense of like what percentage of them roughly have gotten jobs?
Yeah, so we keep a lot of data. Obviously, we're data people. We use Salesforce. It's our CRM. We keep up with all of our customers. So we know exactly what's
Bradley,
going
hold
on.
on. Can I interrupt you? I'm not
Yes.
serving up softballs here. These are literally just questions I'm asking off the top of my head. So just for the avoidance of doubt for anybody in the audience, like I would not have imagined that you had that right off the top of your head. I just yeah. So keep going.
Yeah, no, I love data. I love data analytics. I live it. I have my dashboards ready. I look at them literally every single day. So the stuff you're asking is stuff that our typical potential customers ask, right? So yeah, it's not that you prepped me for these questions. It's that
No, not
this
at all.
is what we get asked on a daily basis. So I always have these ready. Our whole support team would have these answers ready, right? So to answer that question coming in, yes. So what we do is we actually our indicator of completion, we don't say you have to do everything. We say, hey, look, you got to get certified. You got to go through our hands on experience simulation projects. And if you do that and you participate, then we consider you having completed the program. And out of the individuals who complete the program, it's over 85%. It varies, right? Each month it's going to shift a little bit. It's
Sure.
between 85 and 90% of individuals who complete the program land a job in less than 60 days of program completion. So basically, once you've completed
Wow.
the program, that's when you're going hard on job applications, interviews, networking, those kind of things. And you're going through these interview processes. So that usually takes 30 to 60 days. So 85 to 90% of individuals complete the program. To your point, there are plenty of people who do not complete the program. And we have a 30-day refund policy. And the reason for that is because, sometimes people will join and then they realize within those first 4 weeks that, you know what, I'm not that guy. I'm not going to finish this. I can tell that I'm not going to be accountable to myself, even though we have accountability within our community, within our support channels. And you go, you know what? I'm not going to do it. I had a fire lit under me a month ago and now I don't. And if that's the case for you, then 30-day, no questions asked, get your money back. Because we want to work with people who want to get it done, right? We want to work with people who can be successful. And there's no reason for us to take money from people who change their minds after a few weeks. So
Yeah.
for all those reasons, the metrics are through the roof. And I think part of the metrics being through the roof on the back end are because we effectively self-select from individuals who put in the first 30 days and then they keep going.
I love that. Yeah, that well, I love that you have that refund policy, which right. I mean, somebody might get in, right? I had the best intentions and it is what it is. That's yeah, that has to be reassuring for people. But mostly, I mean, I can't imagine there are many programs, job programs in the world that have a 85+% job conversion rate. Just off the top of my head, that has to put you multiple standard deviations to the right in terms of success. That is absolutely crazy. But of course, just like anything, there's no guarantees in life.
Mhm.
Nobody's guaranteeing you anything. But I mean, that's a pretty darn good conversion rate. And you're talking in 60 days. That's from upon completion.
And on top of it, we are the only, to my awareness, we are the only lifetime access program available. So what that means is if it doesn't happen in 60 days, then guess what? We're not done with you. Like we're going to keep working with you. We're going to keep pushing forward. As long as you're working, we're working. So the beautiful thing on that too is we've had members who join and then life happens. They end up, they were unemployed when they joined and they were going to use this to land a job. But maybe a neighbor or a friend came and got them a job doing something to bide their time, right? So they go do that. They get inundated with it for the next 6 months, figure out what that's all about, then realize, okay, I got to get back to the Salesforce thing. And they start from there, right? But it's always amazing to me. I love it when people get back into our group and they go, hey, I joined this thing a year ago. I didn't use it. I'm ready to use it. Where do I start? And it's like, beautiful. Isn't that amazing
Nice.
to have lifetime access to something this powerful? And you can use it when you're ready. So life happens. We get that. And we wanted to create a situation that allowed people to live a normal life and have life things come up, but still have support, accountability, and something to fall back on always.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, that has to be somewhat unusual, I would imagine, that especially the support, right? Like, sure, you can get access to the whatever it is, the tools, the hey, you can get certified, but like you said, you can get that from Trailhead. In essence, it's
Mhm.
the secret sauce here is what you guys do behind the scenes. So, but that does kind of actually tie me into, I guess, just the last little segment that I wanted to ask about. Just okay, like you said, lifetime access, you can come back, but the question that I hear a lot, and actually I got 2 emails in like a 24-hour span, and that's what actually gave me the impetus to reach out to you. I dug one up. It was from Tiffany, and she basically just succinctly said, like, amidst a larger email, she was thinking about transitioning. I'm curious about Salesforce if it applies just as much today. And now I think it's all great to have a lifetime access, but what if the company doesn't exist? What if this, like, I guess, so succinctly, does it apply just as much today? And then I guess the kind of ancillary question on that is you hear Salesforce in the news a lot, and there were some layoffs. There's been lots of layoffs in the tech sector. But can you, I guess, distinguish between Salesforce, the company, Salesforce, the CRM? Like most of the people who are going through Talent Sector are not working for Salesforce. I would venture to say 99% of them. I'm just making that number up, but they're working
Yeah.
for companies that are using the Salesforce CRM, right?
That's right. So last year we had these stats are fresh on my mind because we just did January email blasts, and
I like my made up stats, Bradley. Come on, you're killing it.
the stats for 2023 were that 472 members landed jobs last year, and one of those landed a job at Salesforce. So if that gives you any idea, and then we've had about 1,300 total members land jobs in the last 3 years, and I believe it's less than five. I believe it's four members landed jobs at Salesforce for their first job. So there is a major distinction between being a Salesforce professional and working at Salesforce. That's kind of like saying I'm really good at Microsoft Excel, so I have to work at Microsoft, right? Like, no, absolutely not. Like, that makes
Yeah,
no sense at
got it.
all. These are tools used by companies, and Salesforce has about 250,000 customers, which are companies globally that use Salesforce to run their companies. And what we like to say is Salesforce is sticky. So once you implement Salesforce, that's going to probably cost you somewhere between $100,000 to $200,000, even for a small company to implement Salesforce. To go away from it, to say like I'm done with Salesforce, I'm not using this anymore, I'm going to go use another tool. It's probably going to cost you an additional $100,000 to $200,000 to convert away for a small company. For big companies, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even in the millions for some companies. You're talking all their data, which is their most valuable asset, all their customers, all their leads, all their automations, all their business processes, everything they do lives inside of this thing. So it's very sticky. So there are 250,000 customers today. And odds are 10 years from now, there's going to be way more than that. And even if it started falling off, you're still talking about people don't just pick up and run away. You just can't treat your company like that. So for a lot of reasons, it's very sticky. What I will say is that it's also industry agnostic, is what we say. So, for instance, a lot of people think, well, if you work in finance, where do you work? probably at a bank or, some kind of financial institution like that, right? Well, it turns out in places like, say, like Walgreens, CVS, banks, even school systems, you will find that there are more tech professionals than there are industry professionals. So, for instance, in a bank, there are more tech professionals than there are finance professionals. And this is because all of this is run on technology, the apps for that bank, all of the ATMs, all of the computers and the systems that the tellers use, that the loan officers use, all of that is technology. And a tech professional is who keeps up with that. So, for instance, like JP Morgan Chase uses Salesforce, Amazon uses Salesforce, CVS, Walgreens, they use Salesforce. And so these are all companies that need Salesforce professionals. So if you look at the news headlines and you go, man, tech's really getting hit, I don't know if I want to be a tech professional. Well, the cool thing is, as a Salesforce professional, myself included, I worked as a Salesforce professional for 10 years as an administrator and solution architect. I worked in tech. I worked in manufacturing for automotive and for air filters. I worked in finance for banking. I worked in real estate for builders. So you can work in pretty much any industry. And the cool thing about recessions, even, is that typically they pick a few industries and those get hit the hardest, and the others do okay, and some even grow. So you can take your Salesforce skills and pivot into an industry that is growing, and you don't have to relearn and you don't have to retake certifications and learn a new platform. Same platform, different industry. So it makes it very risk averse when you think about changes in the economy over time.
Right. Yeah, I'm almost thinking about like my corporate accounting days where it's the skill set that could be used at essentially any company. Of course, there would be growing pains or learning curve when you went to a new company. You'd have to learn
Correct.
precisely how they did it, et cetera. But I was fairly confident that my accounting and tech skills would be pretty universal across businesses. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And right, I mean, Salesforce itself is roughly, I think, a quick Google search, roughly a Fortune 100 company. So it's roughly one of the 100 biggest companies in America. So, yeah, I mean, even if they had layoffs, like you said, I mean, they have hundreds of thousands of companies having all of their data there. Salesforce, I mean, unless something crazy happens, there could always be, as I always like to joke, zombie apocalypse, right? Like you can never foretell the future, but it's hard to imagine their Salesforce having any existential issues. So, yeah, that's really, really interesting. Okay, Bradley, this has been a really great update. Thank you so very much for coming on. I think it'll be helpful. Just like, okay, this is still viable, right? To answer Tiffany's question, yeah, it does apply just as much today as it did, and probably more so to some degree, right? In that every subsequent year, more and more companies are using the Salesforce CRM for, like you said, their business data. So Bradley, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it. It's always good to see you, my friend. So, obviously, talentstacker.com. I think the last time I checked, right there, smack in the middle, is take the free Salesforce challenge. I think it's like a 5-day free email course in essence. Is that still the best way for someone to get into the Talent Stacker ecosystem?
Yeah. So the best place to find us is, like you said, talentstacker.com. That's going to show you all the free resources. The 5-day challenge is what I would highly recommend, is where to start. It's going to lay the foundation for you, help you understand what you're up against. It's going to take you about, I would say, 2 to 3 hours total to get through that challenge. And by the end of it, you're going to go, either I'm inspired, I want to do this, this is exciting, I'm ready, or you're going to say, you know what, it's cool, but it's not for me. And at least, hey, within 2 to 3 hours, you'll know, okay, it's neat. I don't really want to do it though, or it's neat and I really want to move forward with it. So I would start there. And obviously, if you're hearing this, you're a podcast listener. And I would highly recommend episodes 1 through 8 of the Salesforce for Everyone podcast. That's a really great way to sort of dig your heels in, get immersed into what this is all about, and figure out, once again, is this something I want to move forward with?
Beautiful. All right, my friend. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.